See if we're getting some volume. The first book club of 2025. Huh? How about that? I have a question. How many people thought they'd be here in 2025? How many people thought they'd be here in 2025? Now, today is a live chat. So you know you can, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you can live chat. You can put in questions and comments and things of that nature. I'm Reverend R. Ken. This is Unity of Chicago South, the #1 online New Thought spiritual community streaming live from Chicago. For those of you that haven't been with us the previous Sundays, I say Happy New Year to you. For those of you that have been with us over that period of time, I say thank you very much. Today is going to be kind of a busy day. I'm going to be doing quite a few little things. So bear with me as we go through our this process of the virtual book club. Okay. Now today, as you can see, the virtual book club is on vibrations, human vibrations. I talked to someone yesterday and they said that they didn't really agree with the fact that vibrations exist throughout the universe, that the whole universe was vibrating. And I know that's probably a pretty challenging concept to get into. But science tells us that they have proven that the universe is vibrating. So if the universe is vibrating, then that means everything in the universe is vibrating. And if everything in the universe is vibrating, that means that we are vibrating. It's kind of, you can see how it kind of goes. If everything is, then we are too. It almost approaches the idea of oneness, if you think about it. Just give it a little thought. It approaches the idea of oneness. It really does. And because of oneness, because everything is vibrating in this oneness, today's author is saying that we can tap into that vibrating force. And in fact, he opens up with the fact that we're already tapped into it and it's already affecting us, regardless of what we might think. And he says it's vibration. Now, a little bit about the author, Charles Haanel. This book, About You, was written in 1927. It was in a book about you. So it was written about 98 years ago, I think it says. And that means that this truth is not a new truth. It's been around. And when he wrote 98 years ago, he wasn't writing something that was new. It had been around in eons before him. So the idea that when things are revealed to us for the first time, that we question them, that makes sense. That's part of our nature as human beings. But the fact that we think because we didn't know, and I'm not speaking of anyone now, I'm talking about all of us. If we think we didn't know, I know me in particular, I have to really work with that maybe there's it's not actual. And then we look at our country, the United States of America, and we see that even when people know, they still can elect a person who has not supported their best interests. So knowing or not knowing, it really doesn't make a difference. It kind of just keeps going. That's I guess that's my take on that. But anyway, This guy, Charles, is really known for something called the master key. And I investigated the master key, and it is a very intense, in-depth program. It's like maybe 4 or 5 months. That's what it actually takes to go through the program on a weekly basis and with the intensity that it was created with. And I'm not sure if we'll ever get into that. I've looked at it, seeing if there was a way that we can maybe minimize it, but I haven't found a way. So today we're going to deal with the mental vibrations that you find in the book called You. It's a book about you, and this is one of the chapters. Mental vibrations. Vibrations, he says, and consciousness kind of work together. He says energy reveals itself in manifold phases according to the medium of which it is manifest. In other words, energy expresses through us in a particular way. It expresses through the rock in a different way. It expresses through the water in a different way. Now, even though the energy is identical, it becomes diversified as it penetrates the different substances or organisms. Infinite energy is ether in motion. Infinite energy, he says, is ether in motion, or rhythmic vibration. And now, again, I mentioned that this is written in 1927, so some of the terminology may be a little foreign to us, but just hang in there, because as we get to the end, if you have not read it, if you have not gone through the whole reading, then things change. We're going to take a break in a few minutes. So when I do that, don't get alarmed. I'm not going anywhere. But then he goes on, the consciousness then is the registration of the universal energy within a vital organism. So the energy that flows through us is how consciousness comes about in us. Then he goes on to tell us about how when the earth is turned toward the sun, the direct rays agitate, he calls it, nervous cells of the body. And this agitation or vibration results in what we know as consciousness. Now hold on to that. I know that's a lot. It's a lot. And that's why it's good to read before we come into the live chat. That's why it's good to read. So we have energy vibrating, creating consciousness. As the nerves are excited and communicate with each other. Say they talk to each other, they call to one another, and it's necessary to have consciousness. This interaction between the nerves in our body, the nervous system, is important. And he says when we rest, they shorten up, and that's how we sleep. These neurons just kind of draw themselves in, kind of hang up the receiver, as he says. Then he goes on to tell us about the planes. The planes. And he says the universe is regarded as composed of several regions or planes, of which our visible plane is one. Physical plane. The other planes are not distant globes removed from us by space, but are situated in the within of space. So within there is planes. Now we kind of know that, don't we, in our practice. We call them higher levels of consciousness. You can go to a different level of consciousness. It's invisible, you don't see it, but we know it's there. Many of us have experienced those various levels. He said, now you have to understand, it's everywhere, surrounding, and it's interpenetrating this plane that we know. Wow. So we can get this idea of plane. It's everywhere. It's all around us. There are different levels. There are different heights, right? And light. That every person that comes into the world has the divine spark in them that can reach through the various planes, can reach through the various planes beyond the material world. that we are actually a unit of consciousness. A unit of consciousness. He says a seed placed in the material world that is constantly turning. So we are the seed that's constantly turning, and we're in the material world, but we have access to all the other planes. All the other planes. Then he goes on to tell us that over a 24-hour period, we are in each one of the 12 constellations for about 2 hours, and we are influenced by those constellations. We are influenced by those constellations. I told you we'd be a pause. We're going to take a pause. We'll be right back. Okay. And that this plane, all these planes, these different levels of consciousness, that within us, there are different levels within us. Not just consciousness out here, consciousness within us. It's a going within that we reach these different levels of consciousness ourselves. Wow. Wow. Think about that. You know, earlier today, I heard something about religion and spirituality, and I said that I was going to open with that, but I kind of forgot about it. And it's coming back to me now, so I guess this is the right time to do that. Unity of Chicago South, spiritual community beyond walls. It's just that. It's a spiritual community. It's about how do we work together? How do we share in an effort to become closer to our source, which is spiritual? Any rituals, burning bowl, things of that nature, are all designed to open the door to the spiritual more than anything else. We should know that. Open the door to the spiritual more than anything else. Okay. Let's start. And when we understand that, maybe we get a different idea of what our journey is all about. So we know that there are those that are looking for religion, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what we practice here. We religiously practice spirituality, but spirituality is the foundation because that's the closer to the truth of us. That's closer to the truth of us. That's closer to the journey that we as human beings have been on from the beginning of time, as anthropologists tell us. So for whatever reason, I wanted to share that, not just with you, but we're being recorded now, and I can look back at it and remind myself of what our goal is, what our purpose is. Now, remember, this is a live chat. It's not just me, a talking head. You can get involved if you're on Facebook or YouTube. There's a way to interact. But anyway, he mentions the idea of the divine spark and the microcosm situation. And that's because within us, this intelligence is going on, as he likes to talk about it, between the cells. And that's what he spoke about earlier. They speak to each other. They talk to each other. That's where consciousness comes from. And that there's a life spark in each cell. And as one expires, another one is born, right? All this is happening on with us, within us. And there's an intelligence for all of these cells, and that's what makes up the human system. That's what makes up the human system. And the issue about being deficient is that he says that we did not vibrate to a certain influence. a cell in our gray area was not finely attuned to something. You say, what does that all mean? Come on. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we would rather not be in. And after we're out of them, we say, well, how did I get in that situation? I should have known this, whatever it is that got us out or how we got out or where we are at that point. I should have known this all the time. And it was always there, just like the truth that he's sharing back in 1927 is relevant today, and it was relevant before he decided to share it. We just weren't in tune. That's what he's saying. We weren't in tune. And then he goes on to tell us about a tuning fork. I want to talk about that tuning fork. And he tells us that the tuning fork, if it's tuned to, I think he uses B flat in his presentation. He says if it's tuned to B flat and you set it on top of a piano, the pitch is B flat, and you set it on top of the piano and you play everything but B flat, that the tuning fork will not respond. But once you hit B flat, the tuning fork responds. And he gives us, that's an example of how we sometimes don't respond to all the things around us because we're not in tune with them. It doesn't matter how great they might be or even how negative they might be. We're not in tune with them. And the spirituality and the religion comes back into play here because the spirituality, one of the goals of it is to be in tune with that which is for our best interests, to be in tune with it. And there's so many ways that can happen: prayer, meditation, a study, guru, just various ways that can happen. Good morning. I'm glad you're here with us today, Patricia. Thank you for chiming in. And he says it doesn't matter with this pitchfork. People think that we can change our location, right? So people think in the pitch fork, it's a tuning fork situation. I'm saying pitchfork, tuning fork situation. You can take that and you can move it to an area where there are only string instruments, no longer a piano, it could be horns, whatever. But until B flat is hit on any instrument, that tuning fork is not going to respond. So even when you move it out of its surrounding to another surrounding, it's still looking for that B flat. It's still looking for that note so it can respond. And when we understand that, we can find the note wherever we are. It's searching for the note. And sometimes we get sidetracked and think that, I just need to, in this case, moving from a piano to a violin, moving from here to there, and the pitchforks, unless you hit the B, that flat note, it's not going to respond unless we hit the note that we are attuned to, or change our tuning, change that tuning fork, get a different one. We're not going to respond. So it doesn't matter what people say to us. It doesn't matter what we do, how we study, whatever, until you may have had this experience. You may have had this, and he's talking about changing the pitch, where you've been reading and studying, and you've been in class or whatever, on a job, whatever, and you've been working with it, and it's like you're getting by, but it still feels a little, awkward. And then all of a sudden, one day you come in and boom, it hits you. Now, nothing out there changed. Nothing. The same books that you were reading, the same tasks that you were doing, they're still the same, but something, your pitch changed. You change within here, so you see out here differently, and you function with whatever it is differently. You have that aha moment, as they say. Oh, yeah, I get it. I understand it. That's something in you connected with what's been going on for the longest period of time. Then he tells us about, you see there, the birth rate. Birth pitch. I don't know what's this pitch thing I'm running away from, but the birth pitch. And saying that we are born with a certain pitch, like we are born maybe with a B flat or like that tuning fork. That we have that, but we have the ability, because of consciousness, we have the ability to adjust our pitch. So we go to school, we go to training, we go through different techniques, and all the time we're fine tuning that tuning fork. But check this out. But if in fact we if in fact we stick to, I'm a B flat, I'm gonna be a B flat, there's nothing gonna change me being a B flat. The music out there is wrong. It's bad music. I'm a B flat. It needs to play B flat. If we don't, because that's what I was born B flat, but we have the ability to become B sharp, C sharp. I'm not in the music to that level. I know it exists, but I don't know. You know, if I say C sharp, there may not be a C sharp, but hopefully you get the idea. And when we decided, I want to hear A sharp, C sharp. I want to hear D. I want to hear the different notes. I'm willing to listen. How can I attune my pitchfork, my tuning fork rather? How can I tune it so I can hear the different levels? Because I have that ability. Not like a rock. Not like a rock. It says now consciousness comes from a reaction to the stimuli that we get. That's how it's developed. That's what he's talking about when he starts talking about the cells are stimulated and they speak to each other and they're communicating with each other. And consciousness is evolving from this particular reaction. And then he gets into the will. He talks about the will determining how we will take this consciousness, how we will use this consciousness to achieve, right? How do we do that? He says the will is influenced by external things. He said that's one will. And determined by the environment, he even uses things like food and so forth. He said, but then there's another will, and he calls it the metaphysical will. And he says, unlike will, human will, metaphysical will is stimulated from the inside. It is motivated from the inside. It comes from the inside, not the situation. What does that mean? Well, you know, since the pandemic, driving has kind of gone crazy. I mean, I don't care where you are. I've heard stories from all over the country. And it's just wow. People are going in the turn lanes and then taking off going straight. And then there are people that sit there at the light, stop at stop signs. That's an example of the metaphysical will. From within, those people are saying, hey, it's a stoplight. I stop. You know, I stop. Because that's part of me. I follow the laws even though. And then there are the folks that get in the lane saying, you know what, I'm late, y'all slow. I don't like what's happening. The music's popping, I'm whatever. And they're letting what's going on influence them, the external influence them. Now, let's go back to the person that's sitting there at the stop sign or the stoplight and not jumping the lane and running around folk. That person is also saying, I'm not going to allow the action of this person to influence what I do. Because there's within me, this metaphysical will determines how I respond and how I react. No? You like, you know like. You think, you think. And what I'm saying there, do you see the difference? There is the environment that does, and it's no doubt about it. It does influence us. It does have an impact on us. And it's our decision how we're going to work with that, how we're going to handle that, how we're going to interact with that. But a lot of that is determined by that metaphysical internal will that says, yeah, no, I you know, but I don't do that. You know, I don't do that. It's going to take me a lot to break this will within me. It's going to take a lot for me to steal, because I don't really steal. That's not what I do. I'm going to have to be hungry. I'm going to have to be destitute. It's going to have to be really rough. I'm not saying I won't, but I'm saying it's going to take a lot because of this will inside of me, this metaphysical will that he talks about. I'm not going to let it, well, everybody else is looting, so I should loot too. You know, if you grew up in a time, I guess, in the 50s, possibly even the 60s, you probably heard, because Joe's going to jump over the cliff, going to jump off a cliff, that means you're going to jump off a cliff too. And so that's an example of the development of that metaphysical will. Yeah. And he lets us know here that we are the center of our environment. We are the center of our environment. Everything that's going on is going on around us. We are the center, and our center is how do we react to those various things that are going on around us. Because we're the controlling factor. There's no doubt about it. We're the controlling factor. Okay. Applying vibrations. Well, very important. Understanding. If we go back to the beginning of today's live chat, he tells us that the reaction of the nerves build consciousness. So if we want to apply vibrations and vibrate on a different tuning level, we're going to affect our nervous system. Okay. So if I want to change the center of my environment, which is me, it's about affecting my nerves, my nervous system. Now, the other side of that is that whatever pitch we're on right now is already affecting our nervous system. So if we're on a helter-skelter, woe is me pitch, it's affecting our nervous system. If we're on a high pitch, it's affecting our nervous system. If we use substance to get to that high pitch, it's affecting our nervous system. Because it's about the nervous system. It's about retraining it so the cells are talking to each other in the way that we want them to produce the life that we want. And it's also how they have already been trained without us even getting involved. How they are talking to each other now, and they don't even realize that they are possibly causing devastation to themselves. But the beauty is, because we're the center, as he says, we can adjust. Because we have consciousness, we can adjust. Because all the planes that exist, the peace plane, the plane of havoc and chaos, all of them exist within us as well as in the universe. So how do we do it? Rev, that sounds really good. I like how it sounds. I might tape and put some music to it. Make it a rap. I don't know. But how? When we begin to realize that it is our thinking, not before you jump. Oh, I've heard that before, my thinking. Before you jump. It's our thinking that affects how these nerves talk, how these cells talk, how the nervous system reacts. It's our thinking. Okay. Now, what are you going to tell me new about thinking? He tells us this, that we have to do something called monopoly of thought. Monopoly of thought. Now, when you think about monopoly, when I think about it, it's like you're trying to control the whole board. That's how I win the game. I have the most money. I have the most property. That's how I win the game. Okay. Now, see, I can understand a little bit about monopoly, but when it comes to my thinking, how does that monopoly play out? He says that once you decide that you want to make an adjustment, that you want the consciousness to be at a different level, focused on a different thing, you must then decide to create thoughts that will monopolize your thinking. So I can't say that I want to be better without coming up with thoughts to support me wanting to be better. And when negative thoughts come up, I don't have to be better. I'm doing okay right now. I'm doing a lot better than many of the people I know. But the real deal is I want to be better. I've told my cells, I've told my nervous system, you know what? I think I want to be better. I've said it. My consciousness says, okay, I accept that. Now it needs the food, the thoughts, in order to support the declaration. That's what it needs. And that's one of the harder things to do, because there's so much negativity in our environment that we are the center of, that when we focus on the external out here with that will, it makes it very difficult to come up with thoughts that support I want to be better, right? But when we realize that there is a metaphysical will within us that is not affected by the external, but deals with the internal. And when we realize that the internal has all the planes of consciousness within it, within all the cells, and we begin to pull ourselves in as the center of our environment, pull ourselves in and work with that which is within us, and then decide that, hey, from this point on, I'm going to have thoughts that support I want to be better. Because I have to get a monopoly of want to be better thoughts going in my life. That's the monopoly. I don't want any. I want to be better, but I want to be better today. That's not it. It has to be a want to be better till it monopolizes. It's the only thing that is in my mind. It's the paramount thing. It's the powerful thing that's in my mind. Yeah, think about that. All the planes, and there are many, they're within the ether, as he calls it, within the race consciousness, as I like to call it. They're out there, but they're also in here. I can search for them out here, and I could find them. Some people find them with no problem. Some people never find them. Or I can come in here and get some help, and more than likely I will find them. My guru, my reading, my studying, my prayer, my meditation, my poetry, my journaling, something, but it's trying to connect something within. It's so difficult when all of our efforts are to connect something out here, because the tuning for that we are is already tuned to B flat. And unless we hear that or change the pitch, it's not going to make a difference. Wow. I like this stuff. Pretty good, huh? Subconscious thought. The monopoly has to become subconscious. The monopoly has to become subconscious. Wow. How does that work? The monopoly has to become subconscious. The thought that we think has to become a part of our natural process. Natural process. We don't think about breathing, blinking. We don't think about getting hungry. We usually just become hungry. We don't think about thirsty. And that thought needs to be the same thing. We don't have to think about, I want to be better. We have created a monopoly of that thought in our consciousness, and it automatically comes out. And so when a challenge comes, it comes up, but is that in line with wanting to be better? Because it has become part of our subconscious. And this is how we initiate the creative process. What? This is how we initiate the creative process. Wow. But how did things get so messed up? This was written in 1927. There was no television there. Radio was the big thing. And so radio was invisible waves. They a transmitter sent out waves and a receiver got them. He uses that example of a transmitter sending out waves and saying that the planetary, the 2 months that we're in each one of the planet, each one of the houses, that there are waves coming out from the sun. And if we're receptive, we get them. If we are on that pitch, or if we're on an open pitch, then we get them. Or we can tune into that pitch of, I want to be better, whatever it may be. That's what he says. So he goes on to tell us that the waves are out there from all different stations. And it can be confusing if we don't decide which station we want, because there's a lot of radio wave noise going on. And so it is with the waves, the vibrations that come from each planet, each house, from the sun. We want to get tuned into the station we want, so when it comes through, we can pick up what we need from that house. And then to understand that the ideas that we get, I want to be better, comes what we refer to as fully clothed. It's already prepared to manifest, but it needs our support. And sometimes we don't want to support it because it doesn't fit our particular idea of the idea that we want to manifest. And if we understood that it comes fully clothed, if we understood that, it may be we may be a little more receptive to it and allow it to come forth into fruition, and find out that it's coming forth in a way that we didn't even know it was going to come forth. Even though we thought we saw, it's going to be, no. Only I do that, right? I try not to do it as much. No, that's not, no. And it's when we could say, okay, hold it. Let me just slow my roll. Let me just calm myself down. Let me just cool out. And let me go into where all these planes are. Let me go into this inner planetary consciousness and say, or inner plane consciousness, let's call it that. And let's just say, I know something's in here, so help me out, because this doesn't look right at all. This is not what I imagined at all. And just see what happens, thinking that, well, if it came to me, it's probably already done. Maybe, you think? Possibly? Maybe? No? I said it earlier that this mental vibrations is like oneness. They are there. They are broadcasting. They are vibrating to everyone, to every part of the universe, this universe, any universe. They're out there vibrating, right? And every human being on the planet is connected to the vibration. That's kind of one, huh? And every human being on the planet, including you and I, have the ability to coordinate with the vibration that we want, because all the vibrations are there. Because the universe is vibrating. So every vibration there could be is already in place. We don't create the vibration. We decide to receive them, become a receiver of the vibration that we want, of the station that we want. Yeah. So all of this all of this that he gave us, and it was about 9 pages, really good stuff, but it was really dense. It was really, this was like studying. Most of the stuff that we had to read up until this point was pretty light reading. Some things were only 3 pages, but this was dense stuff. I mean, he took us deep, but he took us deep to get to where we need to go. You don't talk about going inside, going in where all the planes exist, where every cell is part of a plane, that the neurons are part of this, and every level of consciousness that you want to achieve is already inside of you. You explain all that to the best of your ability, but then do you give people an opportunity to practice what you've given them? And the thing I want to say about this is that the practice that he gives us is much easier than the explanation leading up to the practice. But the reason that it makes sense, at least to me, is the fact that if I understand what it is I can achieve and what is there, and it's logically, laid out to me, then it's easier for me to follow the steps necessary to get to this ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is the silence. The ultimate goal is the silence. And he lets us know that once you get into the silence, that you have freed yourself from the body and you can go anywhere, anyhow. And I do have colleagues that let me know that they do this, and I continue to strive to do it. And occasionally I get away, and occasionally I can't move out the chair. But I don't stop. Because, before I read this, I knew this, right? Before I read all of what he gave me, but what he gave me in this reading was convincing. And it gave a new light to what I thought I might know, you see. It gave a new light. So when I got to the silence, I was like, I got to try this. And it was wonderful when I got to that practice. Now you see it there, it says the silence exercise. Then it says the poem. It's a poem that he gives us. You can download it. We're not going to try to do it here. I had to work with that. Are we going to do the practice? Are we not going to do the practice? No, I think, just as I said, the material is a bit dense, but it's palatable. It's not overwhelming. You don't know where it's going until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, it makes sense to where it took you and how it got you there. But now you know what the end is. And I suggest strongly that you download it from the website, as you see on the screen, that you download it from the website, and that you read it, that you mark it up, and that when you get to the silence, that you will be in a different place of approaching silence than you might have been before you read the material. It's not designed to tell you, I'm taking you into the silence. Follow me. It's designed to give you everything that you need to understand what the silence is and why it's there, how it's physical, how it's mental, all the aspects of it. And then it says, okay, now that you've received all this information, now that you have it, here's the practice. The practice is really quick. Here's the practice. And this is what you should expect. You should expect to be free. You should expect to be free. So I couldn't think of a better way to start out 2025 than sharing this particular material. You say, well, why? There are going to be some challenges. They're going to come from a high level. They're going to be challenges because incompetence breeds challenges. That's how it works. If you don't know what you're doing, or if your motive is not pure, the people that are affected receive the challenges. They're challenged because your purpose is not them, and you don't know what you're doing. That's a heck of a combination. So how do we combat that? There are people that say we protest, we stand against it, we do all that. That's all good. But how do I, as an individual, as we did with the Burning Bowl on January 11th, how we said, now I'm asking the universe to tell me what's best for me. How do I survive whatever it is? How do I overcome the fires in California? How do I overcome this physical challenge? How do I overcome this or get through this financial challenge? How do I, not my people, not how do I get it? And I think what this is doing is saying, if you go through that material, you say, well, that's a lot of reading. 9 pages, not that much, really. But if you go through that material, you get to a point of how do I relieve myself of whatever's coming? Because if I can go into the silence regularly and just move away from it and then come back to it refreshed with an idea of how I best can handle it, then I'm an asset. Or I can be one of the people that add another log to the fire of discontent, negativity, gossip. If that's where you want to be, nobody's like saying, oh, that's just a bad thing to be. I'm not saying that at all. I'm merely saying there's a choice. So I don't know if if you're watching it today, if you watch it later on, and I found out that 2 of our events they pick up the most, the 3 events that pick up the most are the meditation, the virtual book club, and the Divine Feminine that have the most viewers. So I'm saying to you, as possibly the most viewers out there watching this, hey man, read it, download it. It's free. There are no hooks and crooks. No emails are asked for. You go over to the website. You go over to the Meta Media. You download it, the PDF, and you go on about your business. If you want to do something, you can do something. If you want to support us, you can support us. But for the most part, that's it. Why? Because our mission, along with the survival and thriving and so forth, our mission is to help people develop spirituality. That's what our mission is. That's it. You say, well, that's noble. It's not because it's noble. It's because as we help, as we put it out there, as we share it, we get it first. We get it first. So that means it's helping us grow. It's helping us develop. It's helping us become closer to that which we want to be in totality. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. Don't think it's like, oh, that's so noble. It's not that noble. It's self-serving. And we hope that we give enough that people decide, you know what, we want to continue. We want you to continue. And so we want to support you to continue. We want to support you to continue. So that's where we are today. So again, I strongly suggest that you download the material, you read it, go through the program, and then get into the silence. And then, hey man, emote, ladies and gentlemen, not just man, but hey, email us back. Let us know, hey, I got into the silence and it was great. Hey, I couldn't get into the silence. Hey, do you have any ideas that could help me? Let's communicate. We want to do that. We have the internet. We can do that without any problem, right? I'm Reverend R. Ken. This is Unity of Chicago South. Today has been our virtual book club, the first one of 2025. It has been Mental Vibrations. We hope so much that you have gained some peace, some knowledge, some wisdom, some thoughts that are positive to your life, that can enhance your beingness on this planet. And that more than anything else, that you understand that you are truly a spiritual being going through a human experience. And as long as you understand that and lean on the beingness that you are, you will make the human experience journey that much more palatable. Until next time, this is Reverend R. Ken saying thank you so much for joining us. And from the family and staff of Unity of Chicago South, we say namaste.